The first thing I noticed that morning wasn't the departure board or the long security line. It was the pair of bright yellow luggage tags swinging from two tiny backpacks as my 6-year-old niece Emma skipped beside her twin brother Noah. I had written their names in careful black marker the night before because my sister always forgot little details like that. I'm Hannah, 34, a pediatric occupational therapist, and fixing forgotten details had quietly become my role in our family years before I realized no one had ever asked if I wanted it. At exactly 8:17 a.m., my phone vibrated with a message that unraveled everything I believed about obligation, family, and love. Months later, I would find one of those yellow luggage tags floating in a swimming pool 3,000 miles away, and somehow that tiny piece of plastic would matter more than every apology that came after. Here's what my sister never understood about that morning and about all the years leading up to it. Nobody is abandoned in a single moment. It happens one small expectation at a time until someone mistakes your kindness for permanent ownership. Growing up, our family had a quiet ranking system nobody admitted existed. You could see it at Christmas when my sister Claire's presents always had the fanciest wrapping paper, while mine came in whatever gift bag had been saved from the year before. You could hear it when relatives introduced us. Claire was our ambitious one. I was our dependable one. It sounded like a compliment until I realized dependable really meant available. The yellow luggage tags became my own private ritual years later. Whenever Emma and Noah traveled, I bought fresh tags, wrote their names in neat block letters, and tucked a tiny folded note inside each pocket. Nothing dramatic. Just little reminders like, drink water or have fun collecting shells. The twins always searched for the notes before opening anything else. Emma had inherited Claire's green eyes, but none of her impatience. She studied everything carefully, from ants crossing sidewalks to clouds drifting across parking lots. Noah was quieter. He carried around a worn blue stuffed elephant missing one ear because he believed the elephant got nervous without him. Every Friday evening they came to my apartment, where we baked cinnamon muffins, watched nature documentaries, and built impossible Lego cities that stretched across my living room floor. Those weekends became the happiest part of my routine, but looking back, I can admit something uncomfortable. I helped normalize what Claire had become. Every canceled babysitter somehow became my emergency. Every last-minute work meeting somehow became my responsibility. Every vacation she deserved somehow required someone else to sacrifice theirs. Whenever friends asked why I never traveled, I laughed and said family came first. What I never admitted was that I had quietly taught everyone, including myself, that my own plans were infinitely movable. Claire never demanded help dramatically. She simply assumed it. And assumptions are harder to argue with than direct requests. When she announced she was taking a Caribbean vacation that summer, she described it as a much-needed mental health reset after a difficult year. She said she'd be flying out on Tuesday, June 18, from Terminal B at 9:40 a.m. and asked whether I could stay with the twins while she finalized paperwork at the airline counter. 30 or 40 minutes, she promised. I'll text when I'm through security. I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I opened our family group chat. So just to confirm, I typed, I'm meeting you at Terminal B around 8:45, staying with Emma and Noah while you check in, then you're taking them home afterward? Claire replied less than a minute later. Exactly. Thank you, ****. I screenshotted the conversation without really knowing why. Later that evening I sent another message. Just making sure nothing changed? She answered with a thumbs-up emoji and a smiling face. The following morning, I asked again while our parents stood in the kitchen. So I'm only watching them during check-in? Claire laughed, kissed Noah on the head, and said loudly enough for everyone to hear, yes. Relax. Mom smiled over her coffee. See? Hannah always worries too much. Dad barely looked up from his newspaper. Everything had been confirmed. In writing. In person. In front of witnesses. If someone had stopped me then and asked whether I trusted my sister, I probably would have said yes. Maybe not completely, but enough. Still, there was one sentence Claire slipped into the conversation that settled strangely in my stomach. She shrugged while zipping her expensive white suitcase and smiled the same effortless smile that had gotten her forgiven her entire life. You should be taking one for the family. Everyone chuckled as though she'd made a harmless joke. Even I smiled. Now I know that sometimes people rehearse the truth long before they finally act on it. At the time, though, I dismissed the feeling, loaded the twins' backpacks into my car, double-checked the yellow luggage tags one last time, and started driving toward the airport believing I would be back home before lunchtime. I had no idea I was driving toward the moment my sister would leave far more than her luggage behind. The airport was unusually calm for a Tuesday morning. Families shuffled toward security with rolling suitcases, business travelers stared into laptops, and somewhere above us a boarding announcement echoed through Terminal B. Emma was counting the airplanes she could see through the giant windows. Noah sat on the floor beside me, carefully making his blue elephant watch the baggage carts outside. Claire hugged each twin with practiced speed. "I'll be right back," she said. Then she smiled directly at me. 30 or 40 minutes. She disappeared into the check-in line without looking back. At 9:12 a.m., she texted. Security took longer than expected. "Stay with them, ****. I answered. "No problem." At 9:28 a.m., another message arrived. "Almost done." Again, nothing unusual. Emma asked if we could get cinnamon pretzels after Mommy finished. I promised we would. At 9:41 a.m., Flight 728 to San Juan appeared on the departure board. Boarding. I frowned. Claire had told me boarding wouldn't begin until after she came back for the twins. I called her. Straight to voicemail. I called again. No answer. At exactly 9:46 a.m., my phone vibrated one more time. The message contained only 3 sentences. "I already boarded. The twins are safer with you than with me right now. You should be taking one for the family." For several seconds, I simply stared at the screen. The words refused to become real. Then another notification appeared before I could even respond. A photo. Claire was sitting beside an airplane window, wearing oversized sunglasses and holding a tropical travel guide titled 7 Caribbean Islands in 21 Days. Underneath she had typed, "Don't make this harder than it has to be. I'll explain later, ****. The gate agent announced final boarding. The airplane outside slowly pulled away from the terminal. Emma tugged gently on my sleeve. "Did Mommy get lost?" I looked toward the taxiing aircraft. "No," I whispered before I could stop myself. "She found exactly where she wanted to go." Emma didn't understand the sentence. Thankfully, Noah walked over and quietly took my free hand. He didn't ask questions. He simply squeezed my fingers with surprising strength for a 6-year-old. Children often understand change before they understand language. I stepped away from the crowd and dialed Claire again. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. Again. Blocked. My chest tightened. I opened our family group chat and typed furiously. Claire left the twins at the airport and got on the plane. She said she's gone for 3 weeks, ****. Before I could press send, another message from Claire appeared privately. "Don't embarrass everyone. Handle it like you always do, ****. I deleted my first draft. Then I typed another. "Turn around. Get off the plane. I'm serious, ****. I erased that one too. Neither message would change the fact that the aircraft was already rolling toward the runway. Instead, I sent only 5 words. "Call me when you land." No reply ever came. I gathered the twins' backpacks. The bright yellow luggage tags brushed against my wrist as I lifted them. For the first time, they didn't feel cheerful. They felt heavy. We sat together near Gate B-17 while I tried to think. Emma finally asked the question she'd been holding inside. "Is Mommy coming after vacation?" "Not today. Not tomorrow. Not this week." I couldn't tell a 6-year-old that her mother had quietly resigned from motherhood by text message. So I answered the only part one knew. "You're coming home with me today." She nodded without crying. "Okay." That tiny word nearly broke me. No tantrum. No screaming. Just acceptance. As though adults changing promises was already familiar enough to require no explanation. Watching her calmly zip her tiny backpack triggered memories I had ignored for years. Claire missing Noah's preschool play because of a spa appointment. Claire asking me to attend parent-teacher conferences because she had important networking. Claire forgetting Emma's allergy medication during a weekend trip. Claire borrowing money she'd never repaid because you're better with budgets. Every incident had seemed isolated. Every excuse had sounded temporary. Standing in the airport, they lined themselves together like dominoes. This wasn't an impulsive decision. It was simply the first time Claire had stopped pretending she'd eventually come back. And I had helped build that illusion. Every time I'd quietly covered for her. Every time I'd reassured the twins that mommy was just busy. Every time I'd told relatives not to judge her too harshly. I hadn't only been the person she relied on. I had become the bridge that allowed her to walk farther away from her own responsibilities. The realization hurt more than her text. Because it meant I wasn't only the person she'd betrayed. I had unknowingly participated in making the betrayal possible. By the time we reached the parking garage at 10:38 a.m., my phone had accumulated 14 missed calls. None of them were from Claire. The first was my mother. The second was my father. The third belonged to my cousin Melissa. Before answering any of them, I buckled Emma and Noah into the back seat. Emma carefully adjusted the yellow luggage tag hanging from her backpack. Then she looked at me through the rearview mirror. "Aunt Hannah." "Yes. Can we still make cinnamon muffins on Friday?" I smiled even though my eyes burned. "Yes." She nodded as though that single answer solved the entire world. I wish the adults in our family had ever been half as brave as those two children sitting quietly behind me. I pulled into my apartment parking lot a little after 11:15 a.m., but I didn't turn off the engine right away. My phone kept vibrating against the center console, lighting up with one family member after another. I knew exactly what they were going to say before I answered a single call. Not one of them would begin with, "Are Emma and Noah okay?" They would begin with Claire. I was right. Mom called first. "Hannah, don't overreact." I closed my eyes. "Mom." Claire got on a plane and left her children with me. There was a pause, followed by a sigh that somehow sounded annoyed rather than shocked. She probably just needed a break. "A break?" I asked quietly. "She abandoned her 6-year-olds in an airport." "Don't use such dramatic words." I looked into the rearview mirror. Emma was helping Noah buckle his stuffed elephant into the empty seat beside him, making sure it was safe before unbuckling herself. My mother hadn't asked about either of them. She only asked whether I had embarrassed Claire by telling anyone else. When that call ended, Dad phoned. His voice carried the same familiar tone he'd used my entire childhood whenever he wanted peace more than justice. "You know how your sister gets." "I do," I answered. "Then don't make this into something bigger." I laughed once. Not because anything was funny. Because I suddenly realized that was exactly how every family emergency had ended, with me making myself smaller so someone else wouldn't have to grow up. "I have 2 children sitting in my back seat," I said carefully. "They think their mother is coming home in 3 weeks." Dad stayed silent. Finally he muttered, "We'll figure something out." "No," I replied. "I've been figuring things out for everyone else for 15 years. I ended the call before he could answer. Inside my apartment, the twins automatically slipped into the routine they knew so well. Emma placed her tiny shoes beside the front door in perfect alignment. Noah carried his blue elephant straight to the little reading corner by the window. Neither child asked where Claire was anymore. That frightened me more than tears would have. Children shouldn't adapt to abandonment that quickly. While they unpacked their backpacks, I opened my messages. Melissa, my cousin, had written. "Maybe Claire just panicked. Give her time, asterisk asterisk." My Aunt Diane sent. "Families stick together. Don't involve lawyers or police, asterisk asterisk." Even my older brother, Ethan, texted. "She trusts you. That's why she left them with you, asterisk asterisk." I stared at that sentence for nearly a full minute. Trust. No. Trust asks permission. This had been something entirely different. By noon, my anger had settled into something colder. I made grilled cheese sandwiches for the twins, sliced strawberries into tiny hearts the way Emma liked, and poured chocolate milk into the blue plastic cups I kept for their visits. They ate quietly. Emma suddenly looked up. "Aunt Hannah." "Yes, if Mommy forgot us." She stopped speaking. I waited. Can we remind her? There are questions children ask that no adult is prepared to answer. This was one of them. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "None of this happened because you needed reminding." She nodded slowly. Then she returned to her sandwich as though accepting information she didn't fully understand. That quiet acceptance hurt far more than crying ever could have. Every bite they took became another memory I couldn't ignore. Claire missing Noah's kindergarten orientation because she had a brunch reservation. Claire asking me to stay overnight with the twins after promising she'd only be gone 2 hours. Claire forgetting Emma's dance recital entirely until she saw photos online. Every single time, I had invented excuses. Mommy had an important meeting. Mommy's car broke down. Mommy loves you very much. Some of those excuses had been lies. Not malicious ones. Protective ones. But lies all the same. I wasn't only the person Claire had taken advantage of. I had become the translator who softened every disappointment before it reached the twins. That realization settled heavier than anything she'd texted me from the airplane. Around 2:40 p.m., my best friend Olivia knocked on the door carrying 2 grocery bags. She worked as a family law attorney, though we'd been friends long before she entered law school. She didn't begin with advice. She walked into the kitchen, unpacked juice boxes, bananas, cereal, toothpaste, pajamas she had grabbed from a nearby store, and quietly filled my empty pantry with the practical things children suddenly living somewhere needed. Only after the twins wandered into the living room to build Lego towers did she speak. "Hannah." I looked up. This isn't normal. 3 simple words. No minimizing. No explaining Claire away. No asking me to protect the family image. Just reality. I felt my shoulders relax for the first time all day. I keep wondering if I'm overreacting. Olivia actually looked offended. She left 2 6-year-olds at an international airport. "I know." "No," she said gently. "I don't think you do." She slid her phone across the table. I looked up the flight. My stomach tightened. It landed in Punta Cana 45 minutes ago. Claire hadn't changed her mind. She hadn't gotten off during a layover. She hadn't called. She had landed exactly where she'd planned to go. Olivia leaned forward. "You have permission to stop protecting someone who never protected you." Nobody had ever said those words to me before. Permission. It sounded almost childish. But I realized I'd spent my entire life waiting for someone to tell me it was acceptable to step out of the role I'd been assigned. I looked toward the living room. Emma was carefully tying one of the bright yellow luggage tags around Noah's stuffed elephant. "So he doesn't get lost," she explained. The knot she tied wasn't perfect. Neither was my family. But watching those 2 children quietly create safety for each other, I understood something I should have learned years earlier. Love isn't measured by how much you carry for someone. It's measured by whether they would ever carry you when your hands are finally full. For the first time since 9:46 that morning, I stopped thinking about how to rescue Claire from the consequences of her choices. Instead, I started thinking about how to make sure Emma and Noah would never again have to wonder whether the adults in their lives planned to come back. That evening, after the twins had fallen asleep in the little guest room they normally treated like an adventure, I finally had enough silence to think clearly. Emma had insisted on placing both bright yellow luggage tags on the bedroom doorknob. "So Mommy can find us when she comes back," she had whispered. I smiled for her sake. Then I closed the door and cried in my kitchen for exactly 4 minutes before washing my face and opening my laptop. If I was going to make any decision, I wanted it to be one I could live with years from now. Not one fueled by anger. At 8:13 p.m., my phone lit up with Claire's name for the first time since the airport. It wasn't a call. It was a video message. Behind her stretched a white beach, turquoise water, and rows of palm trees bending in the evening wind. She was wearing a floral dress I had never seen before, holding a bright drink with a slice of pineapple on the rim. She looked rested. She looked happy. She looked nothing like a mother who had left two 6-year-olds behind. "Hannah," she said casually, as though we had simply traded weekend plans. "I know you're upset, but you're making this bigger than it needs to be. The twins love staying with you anyway." She laughed softly. "I just need some space to figure myself out." Then came the sentence I had already begun to hate. "You should be taking one for the family." The video ended. No apology. No questions about Emma or Noah. No promise of when she would return. Just another reminder that she believed my life existed to absorb the consequences of hers. I stared at the screen for nearly a minute before opening our text conversation. My fingers moved faster than my judgment. Draft 1. Asterisk, you abandoned your own children. Don't ever contact me again unless you're coming home. Asterisk. I read it once, then deleted every word. It was true, but it wasn't useful. I started over. Draft 2. Asterisk, I'm contacting the police, Child Protective Services, every airline you used, and every person you've lied to. Enjoy your vacation while it lasts. Asterisk. I hovered over the send button. Then I deleted that one too. It satisfied my anger. It wouldn't help the twins. I closed my eyes, took one slow breath, and reminded myself that every message I sent could someday be read by a judge, a social worker, or even Emma and Noah when they were old enough to understand what had happened. So I wrote something completely different. "Claire, I am willing to care for Emma and Noah for the next 72 hours while you arrange to return. If you cannot or will not return immediately, I will begin taking whatever legal steps are necessary to protect them. This is not punishment. This is about making sure your children have stability. Please let me know your flight information before Friday at 8:00 p.m. ***. I read it twice. There was no accusation, no insult, no threat beyond the simple statement of what I would do. I pressed send. Her reply arrived 8 minutes later. "Seriously?" Then another. "You're unbelievable." A third followed almost instantly. "If you involve lawyers, Mom and Dad will never forgive you. Ethan already thinks you're trying to steal my kids. Melissa agrees you're overreacting. Think about what this will do to the family. ***. Another bubble appeared before I could answer. "And if the twins grow up thinking I'm a bad mother, that'll be on you." I leaned back in my chair. There it was. Reputation. Relationships. Guilt. Every hostage she could think of, lined up in 3 short messages. Not once did she ask whether Emma had eaten dinner. Not once did she ask whether Noah still slept with his blue elephant. Not once did she ask whether they had cried after she left. She cared about how the story would sound, not how the children were living inside it. I typed only one response. "The family was damaged when you left them at the airport, not when I decided to protect them." This time she didn't answer. The next morning began with another round of phone calls. Mom arrived at my apartment carrying a casserole dish, as though food could solve what honesty never had. She watched the twins coloring dinosaurs at my dining table before pulling me into the hallway. Claire called. I assumed she would. "She says you're forcing her hand." I almost laughed. "By asking her to come home to her children?" Mom sighed. "She's overwhelmed. So are Emma and Noah. You've always been stronger." "There it is," I said quietly. "What?" "The reason everyone keeps choosing me." She frowned. "I don't understand." "No," I answered. "You never wanted to." For the first time in my adult life, I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I didn't try to convince her. Some conversations end not because they're resolved, but because you finally understand they were never being held in good faith. Mom looked toward the dining room where Emma was helping Noah sound out words in a picture book. "They seem happy. They're trying very hard to be." That sentence finally silenced her. After she left, Olivia came by with a folder full of legal information and temporary guardianship paperwork. She spread everything across my kitchen table. "This doesn't mean you're declaring war." "I know. It means you're creating stability." I nodded. Somewhere between signing the first form and organizing medical records, something inside me shifted. For years, I had fought to earn a better place inside the same broken family system. Now I understood that no amount of sacrifice could fix rules designed to keep one person carrying everyone else. I wasn't walking away from my family. I was walking toward a healthier version of one. Still, I left one bedroom exactly as it had always been. Claire's old room in my apartment, the one she occasionally used after late nights downtown, remained untouched. Not because I expected her to deserve it, but because if she truly came home ready to become the mother Emma and Noah needed, I wanted the door to be open. Keeping space for someone's return isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the strongest proof that you're choosing hope instead of revenge.